one would hardly maintain that an F-16 fighter plane is sacred.
I get that.
So we need to be very specific about deciding where sacred geometry lies. Now, the great master, John Michel, who died last year, at one point said, everything is sacred. A motor car is sacred. A cinema chair is sacred. We cannot make divisions about it. And this is one extreme position to take. My position is slightly more particular, and I would say that sacred geometry is that geometry which attempts to symbolize a link between the material and the spiritual. There must be an intent within the mind of the geometer to build some kind of bridge between heaven and earth. He's not simply designing a table.
That's a fascinating translation. I like it.
Good. You can use it.
We'll certainly present it on the show. I agree that sacred geometry is used all over the place, and it's really thrown around. And that's why I asked you, in your experience, in your view, what it is.
And is trivialized and is debased. And I think for all things which are truly sacred, they need to be treated with discretion and respect and discernment. And I fear that the phrase sacred geometry has been corrupted in the last years by people who not only don't understand it, but fundamentally have no intention of trying to understand it either.
Can you explain what the environment is like walking into a crop circle or around a crop circle? Is it electrically charged?
Yeah, well, people tell me it is. I've never felt that directly. We're all different people, we're all different beings. I have many friends in crop circle studies who are able simply to approach a formation and to feel through their bodies the level of physical energy in there. They are enormously sensitive to the physical energy. I cannot do this. I work through my eyes, and everything I've learned from crop circles has come from looking and seeing and staring. And I feel very little when I go in, which is not to say, during the early 90s, we used to get what we call zaps from the circles. And I received sequentially, I think, in 92, 93, and 94, I received a zap in each of those years, which was very, very uncomfortable.
What does that mean? When you say a zap?
And that was simply from walking in and walking out. So, having said that I don't feel the energies, I was certainly hit very hard by the energies at that time. And indeed, over those 3 years, I was affected more and more seriously. And by the third occasion, I was ill for over a week. Now, one of the things that was very interesting was that I didn't even go into the final circle, which got me in 94. I simply stood on a rise overlooking it and stared at it for a long, long time, longer than I would normally do, because the person I was with was taking photographs. So I suppose I was exposed to radiant energy for a longer period than I would have liked. I was very, very ill by the time I got home. And in the morning I felt fine, but by midday the illness had come back. I felt very queasy. And that evening I had a friend, I had an appointment with a friend who was coming over for dinner, John Martineau, who's one of the pioneers of crop circle research and an amazing geometer, but also a man who has always been extremely sensitive to the energies. Now, by the evening, I was on my feet again, but wasn't feeling good. He rang on the door. I went to the door and opened it, and he literally staggered back and said, "Boy, did they get you." He could feel the energy off me that I had absorbed the day before.
So do you think, given that that has happened, that we are welcomed into them, or we're supposed to stay at the periphery and look?
I think we're certainly welcomed into them. I mean, the cases, those sort of cases used to be commonplace in the early 90s. They're much, much rarer now. In fact, I've not heard of one for years. And above all, I think the circles are enormously welcoming. I think they very much want us to come in. There are very, very few occasions these days when people feel ill. And indeed, whenever they have felt ill, the recovery is usually fairly quick.
What are your biggest challenges right now in your life?
My personally.
Personally or professionally, or both?
Well, my biggest challenge is that I've got multiple sclerosis. And on Monday, I'm flying to Bulgaria to have a procedure, a revolutionary procedure, which I believe will cure me.
Wow.
That is a bit of a challenge, as you imagine. Having suffered with this for 20 years, I'm against the advice of conventional medicine. I've found a place where I can get treated, and I'm going to get treated. And if anything encourages me beyond belief of the brilliance of this treatment, it is the transports of horror that the conventional medical establishment has greeted this breakthrough with. And there we are, cognitive dissonance again, you see. The medical establishment has said for years multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disease of unknown origin. And a professor of cardiology in Italy has sorted out the cause and the cure of MS. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, does the medical establishment hate the idea of being able to cure people.
That's for sure. I just did an interview with Dr. Tullio Simoncini, who figured out that if you inject sodium bicarbonate into tumors, or into the main artery feeding the tumors that you can disappear the tumor completely within a week. He's treated brain